All right, welcome back to Warrior Theology Podcast. I am your host, almost Dr. Peter Van Cleek, with co-host already, Dr. Peter Van Cleek. We are discussing the Song of Solomon, a literal rendering of the Song of Solomon. We have made it to chapter 7. The point of this, of course, is to argue for a biblical sexual ethic. And we think that many of the church have not heard what the scripture has to say, particularly in the Song of Solomon, and particularly with marriage between a man and a woman. So that's why we've dove into this material. We're in chapter 7, like I said. We're almost to the end, and then we have chapter 8, and then that will be the end of the book. So if you're just joining us, and we are very near the end of our kind of helicopter view of the argument. And then, Lord willing, after this, we'll probably move on to things like book reviews, cultural critique, and things like that. So anyway, with that said, take us back into chapter 7, Dad.
So chapter 7 begins with private marital dancing. And this is something, between the wife and the husband. Private marital dancing concludes with the consummation of complete physical oneness within the bounds of holy matrimony. And then after this is concluded, it's in chapter 7. And as Pete said, we have 6 chapters that lead us up to this. But again, as we've noted that this is the more delicate material, but it's so expected. It is so intuitive for married couples, happily married couples. And the Bible just reinforces this intuitive joy that married couples have, and as they enjoy one another. And so, it just needs to be preached. Let me just say that again. We need to preach all of this, which brings us then down to verse 10, which is it's a fabulous passage of scripture. I think it's one of the most wonderful passages in the whole song, where it says, I am my beloved. The Shulamite says that I belong to him. Now, this is interesting, because if you read the Pauline material, it all talks about the submission of the wife. But the submission of the wife here is expressed in terms of her willingness to be owned by him. And why is that? And that is because he loves her. They are in such love with one another. That's why I think when you start going through the Pauline material, and it talks about that the husbands love the wife as Christ loves the church, and wives submit to your husbands as unto the Lord, all of that, which is absolutely true, that this interaction between love and submission is to be encapsulated in this all-encompassing whole person love that's expressed in what we've just seen here. Private marital dancing, where his eyes are transfixed on her, the consummation of their relationship here. They're married in chapter 4, so they've been married a long time, but this wonderful experience that they have together after that. And then this expression where she says, I am my beloved's, and then it says this, I belong to him, because she wants to, because he's awesome. And then it says, and his desire is towards me. That is, his whole being is focused at me. And here you have, in such a short verse, the union, the whole person union between the Shulamite and Solomon. If this verse could be internalized by every married couple, we would see a robust and healthy and spring-like beautiful relationship that existed between a husband and a wife. Just a few notes here. When it says, I am my beloved's and his desires towards me, this is an expression of mutual affection that develops into mutual ownership. It's an idea of not ownership that we speak of like in the way of slavery, but it's one of willingly giving of yourself out of the deepest and the most fundamental sense of love, of attraction, of embracing one another. All right, like I'm his and she's mine. And you say it that way, not because it's a negative thing, but because it's the most wonderful thing you can say in regards to somebody else. It's interesting here that the word that's of desire that is found in this passage, where his desire is towards me, is found only 3 times in the scripture. It's here, Genesis 4:7 and 3:16. And the word here means a strong desire, an urging, or a longing. I mean, he just has this longing towards me. I mean, this is her assessment of the relationship that they have after private marital dancing and after the consummation of that. I did put a note in here because I included 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 4, where it talks about exusio, or power, or to bring under the control of. That passage, I mean, as wonderful it is, does not convey the intimate passion and strong desire to submit to the ownership of the other. When you preach through that, it's just pretty. He has power over somebody else. I mean, you have to include all the text to get the full meaning of this. My dad used to say that true preaching is preaching the doctrine in the New Testament the way it's illustrated in the Old. He said that was the best kind of preaching there was. So the next time you go through 1 Corinthians or chapter 7, you include this material on the song, which tells us what this power is in regards to. You read this. I am my beloved's, and his desire is towards me. So in 1 Corinthians 7:4, it asserts this relationship, but it says no more. And here in the song, it tells us what this ownership is all about. So by way of application, the song provides the personal context for desiring and longing for this kind of mutual ownership. This is how it works. This is how this union is established. The husband enjoys her dancing. She wants to dance for him. See, there you go. His eyes are transfixed on her, but she wants to dance for him. The result is a happy marriage. God has given the wife a powerful means of maintaining a happy marriage in this passage. And so I remember when the first time I came to that passage, I said, man, this is just wonderful stuff. This is just amazing material that I'd never heard preached. But that's the verse 10 is actually, it sets up the next section here, but it ties this passage together. Do you have something on that, son?
Yeah, I was just going to say that we know that the Lord, that God in the Old Testament and certainly in the New Testament, the Lord is jealous for the fidelity of his bride, of his people. You cannot be rightfully jealous unless there is this sense of belonging. The bride of Christ must belong to Christ in this sense before we start talking about the jealousy of a lover or someone who loves them. So as much as we don't like the language of ownership, and I get that, and I think when I'm sitting here in the 21st century, I recognize that's probably heavy language for many listening. But the concept of jealousy that God has within the relationship, a love relationship between Christ and the bride, or between Jehovah and his people, as soon as they go after false gods and commit idolatry, God regards this as adultery. That this is this is sexual infidelity, but like on a spiritual level. And so God is a jealous God. But we only understand, you're not jealous for some other woman's husband. You're not jealous for some other guy's wife. You're jealous for your wife, or you're jealous for your husband. You don't want him wandering off and hanging out with other chicks. You don't want him looking at pornography. And the same thing for her. You don't want her going over and flirting with other dudes. Why? Because she's your woman. It says in the Bible, it says, let every man have his own wife, and let every wife have her own husband. In the Greek, it's let every man have his own woman, and let every woman have her own man. Right? This is a belonging. So we can't get around the idea of belonging here, I don't think. The second thing I wanted to say is desire is very powerful. Just think about it. Take time and think about it. What do you do that you don't desire? That you just got to, I go to work and I don't desire it. And it's not true. You climb out of bed because you'd rather pay your bills than lay in bed. You, as much as you might not want to go to work, you desire work more than you desire to not pay your bills. Ask yourself how many times you desire to go to the gym. You desire to be strong more than you desire to sit on the couch and watch TV. As hard as going to the gym can be. In fact, everything that we do, I think that there's a real argument for here. Everything we do is driven by our desires. So when she says here, his desire is toward me, it says in my notes, now this is in my Reformation Heritage Bible, so they're not reading it literally. So they're making connection here between Christ and the church. But the connection, they say, is one of perfect communion. Perfect communion. The desire for the man and the desire for the woman for each other is a desire for perfect communion or whole communion. It's communion with the eyes and with the words. It's communion with the body and with the soul, right? So when he's talking about desire, this isn't just like what we would say carnal desire or physical desire. That his desire is 100% in his mind, in his body, his soul, his spirit, desires to be in communion with her. And she recognizes that, guys. Think about that. She is so aware of this desire that he has in this full communion, this perfect communion, that it's so obvious she sees it. And I'm telling you guys, sometimes your girl does not see it. Work gets in the way, trouble gets in the way, stress gets in the way, bad things can get in the way. Another woman, for example, can get in the way, and it does not communicate to her that your desire is toward her. And she can't say that. She can't say that. But Solomon is so manifestly bearing this out that she can say his desire is toward me. I can tell. I can tell. It's not just his words. It's not just his gifts. Like it's exuding, right? It's coming out of him. So anyway.
Yeah, it is a wonderful passage. These are the words of the Shulamite. These are the words of the woman. It says, I am my beloved's. I mean, I want to be his. You see, in my experience, I mean, happy marriages, the wives want to be the wives of their husbands. I want to be his. I don't want anybody else. I want to be his. He's the greatest guy ever. I mean, this is what women in wives in healthy relationships say. I mean, they speak of their husbands this way. And this is what the Shulamite is saying. I mean, I belong to him. I mean,
she recognizes it's coming the other way too.
That's right. I mean, and this is the stuff of which happy, wholesome marriages are made. And so, again, going back to some of the things we said earlier, if this is not what's happening, this is when you take inventory of your relationship. What can I do to get this straightened around? And what we're reading here all the way through the song are steps that you can make to build a relationship that will culminate in this, what we're saying here. That is the actually I tied that in with the preceding passage, only the way it's broken up in the Hebrew. The next pericope here, starting in verse 11 to the end of the chapter, which is just 11, 12, and 13, is another one of those incredibly interesting portions of Scripture. Matter of fact, when I went through this for the first time, I think it was Pete or one of my sons said, I don't know if you can preach that, all right, because of the way society is unfolding here. But let's just look at it here for a moment. It says, come, my beloved, let us go forth into the field. Let us lodge in the villages. So what we're seeing here is that moving then from the palace, they want to take a trip into the country. All right. This is where she's comfortable. You remember in chapter 1, she has a vineyard. She's from the country. And now they want to take a trip to the country. And it says that she uses an imperative too. When it says, come, my beloved, this is an imperative. It's like she's saying, come on, we got to go. And of course, he's ready to go. I mean, this is fine. I mean, remember we said that when we got into the song that the woman is the driving influence here. And here we see it again. This is not in keeping with the way we usually deal with the context of the Old Testament, the role of women in the Old Testament. But within the relationship of husband and wife, we see this and it's welcomed. So she wants to get an early start. It says here, In verse 12, let us get up early to the vineyards. Oh, so she wants to get up early in the morning. She's planning ahead. Let us see if their vine flourishes, whether the tender grape appear, and the pomegranates bud forth. And so what she wants to do is she wants to go into the countryside. She wants to go visit the vineyards there that are in blossom. I mean, and then when you look at the commentaries, it talks about the aromas and everything that goes in with all the way this is depicted, because when you read the song, it's like you're going into just this wonderful world where the aromas, the textures, the sounds, the sights, everything it just fills you. It encompasses you. Everything is just this wonderful feeling. I'm using the word wonderful, but you're enraptured by the context here. It's springtime. Everything's green. I mean, it's a time of life. So she says, let's get up early. We're going to the vineyards. It's the last bit of verse 12 here. It says, there will I give thee my loves, which is what we've been talking about in regards to the song. And I remember preaching this because the first part here is private marital dancing, which we would conclude is happening in a room somewhere. Here she says, we want to go to the vineyard, and I want to give you my loves, or I want to have complete physical oneness within the bounds of matrimony in the vineyard. Now try preaching that from the pulpit, because she said, now, so then you have to build a context for this.
Do you have the original language there before we go any further? Because that's huge.
I don't. Well, hang on a second. Hang on. I'm in chapter 7. And I do. Hang on a second. What verse is that? It's verse 12. Here, I don't know if you guys can see this, but this is what I did for the whole song. I hope you can see this. That is a syntactical analysis of every word in the song, because commentators say things, but I wanted to make sure I parsed and declined all the Hebrew. So I have this for the entire book before I did anything on it. I mean, I didn't wait to do the whole thing before I wrote the commentary, but let's see. Let's see. Let's see. 13. Oh, it's actually on the next page. Hang on. Yeah, you don't. Yeah, actually, it's worse if I read you into Hebrew. Then you're going to really get lit up.
No, I know. I'm just telling you, because I did the Hebrew, and I know, like, when you read this, you're like, oh, loves. Well, that sounds kind of cool. But when you read the original, like, it's like
it's the word is dod, which is used all the way through here. It's translated loves, breasts, or teat. In Proverbs 5:18, it says, there will where love abides, the seed of love, the breast of a woman. In Proverbs 5:19. Better translated your tit or nipple. That's what this is in regards to. But I didn't say any of that when I was preaching it. But
yeah.
But this is what the Hebrew is referencing. Yeah. So anyway, is that what you want? Is that what?
Yeah, that's what I wanted, because I think when you read the text, right, and it's interesting, like in my Bible, they don't address what it is what these loves are, right? Because if you look at it in the Hebrew, it is a word that is used throughout, well, in several places in the Old Testament for the female breast,
right?
So of course it's a very beautiful way of putting it. She says, "There will I give thee my loves," but let's be clear that that's the Hebrew that's behind this language. So when Dad presses on and says, well, they're in an open space, they're out in a field. Now, how do you wrestle with this? Because you can't get around the Hebrew at this point, right? The Hebrew is telling us this is the word. So anyway, that's what I wanted to do before we get into anything like you go do the Hebrew, go look it up in BDB.
Yeah, and listen,
what it's going to say.
And listen, and really, if I get this wrong, get back to us.
Yeah.
I don't believe I do, but that's what this is in reference to. And I remember when I began, this is something that is very daring. It's very daring, and so this all has to happen. Still, it is outside, but privately. All right, that's what we're talking about here, and this speaks of a degree of adventure that is helpful in a marriage. That's what this is about. She says, "I'm going to get up early." This is all by design. Get up early. We're going to go to the vineyards, and while we're there, the reason we're going there early is so that what it says, "There will I give thee my loves." I mean, that's what this is about. And who is driving this again? Who is saying this? See, that's why when I brought this to the guys at Bob Jones for my doctoral dissertation, the one thing we had to get settled, and everybody agreed. I mean, I had a great committee. I mean, great committee, but we all settled on and agreed that the whole song is meant to be preached. It's all meant to be preached. And so you have to do it judicially, but you cannot before God, in your obligation as the minister of the word, not preach the word for the sake of what the people in the congregation might think about it. I mean, listen, if you're believing sovereign grace, as I do, and Pete does, I mean, what are you going to, that's why guys never preach out of Ephesians 1 or Romans 8 or 9, 10, and 11. I mean, what are we going to do with that? And so, because some people don't appreciate the fact that what we talk about, the deadness of a free will before the work of God in the heart. Anyway, but yeah, that's what it says. And so let me see if I can, if there's anything I can do here from my, just in the notes. She will give Solomon her loves. Her loves is the same word found in Proverbs 5:19, translated breasts, and more specifically in Ezekiel 23:3 and 21. The Hebrew word in Brown, Driver, and Briggs is called a caressing word. They call it a caressing word. Isn't that wonderful? Between husbands and wives, this is what should be happening. I mean, this kind of liberty, all right, in the enjoyment of one another. And then let's see one other thing here. Verse 13, it says, "The mandrakes give a smell. At our gates are all manner of pleasant fruits, new and old, which I have laid up for thee, O my beloved." And what she says is their home has a pleasant aroma. All the way through here, it talks about the importance of aromas, how things smell. The word gates here refers to the doorway of a private dwelling. The word pleasant always refers to gifts of nature and often to fruit. These are the same words found in 4:13 and 16, referring to the excellencies of her body on their wedding night. At home, the Shulamite says she has treasured up, listen to this, she has treasured up new and old pleasant fruit or fresh and familiar personal delights for her beloved husband. Isn't that interesting? She has treasured up fresh and familiar personal delights for her beloved husband. I mean, this is the Shulamite. Familiar things that please him, fresh things that please him. The Shulamite is always looking for ways to keep the intimacy of their marriage vibrant and fresh. Now, I'll argue the husband should be doing this as well, but in the song, it is the woman that is the driving force, always looking for familiar things and new things to keep their marriage vibrant and fresh. And here it's at their home. So that's the end of chapter 7. So let me just summarize it. What we have here is it begins with private marital dancing. It goes to complete physical oneness within the bounds of holy matrimony. And then it goes to the third thing is a trip to the country where the wedding night is relived and expanded upon. A trip to the country where the wedding night is relived and expanded upon. And by way of application, And I mean, I remember standing in the pulpit saying this. By way of application, 1, God sanctions private marital dancing. It's right here in the text. 2, private marital dancing helps maintain the intimacy of marriage. 3, the Shulamite is anxious to infuse new life and vitality into the marriage. That's what we have in chapter 7. So anyway.
That gets us to the end of 7.
Okay. Yeah, that's the end of 7. That's the heavy hitter in the whole book. You can see why.
Yeah.
So
all that we have left is chapter 8.
Yep.
It's taken us 16 or 17 episodes, I think, to get to this place. So we just keep, no, it's more than that. It's somewhere in the 30 range, I think, at this point. Anyway, so thanks for joining us, as always. I know this material was heavy, and listen, you can go to, if you want to check us on it, you can go to Bible Gateway or Bible Hub or Blue Letter Bible and go look up the interlinear. Click on the lexical information on the particular word, particularly there, let's say loves, and go check it out. Check it out and read the commentaries on it. You know, if you read Kyle and Dalish, particularly Hebrew scholars, German Hebrew scholars, take a read. You know, read Tremper Longman's commentary on the same thing.
But if you read Tremper Longman, though, you're going to find far more intimacy than I have introduced in this podcast. He finds it in chapter 1.
Yeah,
he finds it everywhere. And
I'm just saying, like,
yeah,
this may come as a shock. That's how I'm trying to recognize that in our listener. I do get it, but at the same time, I ask you to consider that if you do look at the grammar, we're compelled to teach what the grammar has to say. We are exceedingly appreciative as we do teach it with the gentleness with which the scripture has been translated in these ways to help us communicate this to God's people. So anyway, smash the subscribe button. By all means, share the material. If you've got any questions, you want to talk to us some more, whether it be online or in person, by all means, go to Wisdomgap.org. There's a form right at the top of the page. Hit us with a question. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. With that said, we will talk to y'all later.
See ya.